Yo, what's up everyone? Welcome back to the channel. It's your host, Six Path Weeb, bringing you another wild ride through the world of anime fanfiction. Today, we're diving back into one of our most intense storylines yet. What if Naruko became a rogue shinobi? Part 7. Yeah, you heard that right, things are about to get even crazier. Quick disclaimer before we jump in. All content here is just for fun and discussion. I don't own any of the anime clips or characters you'll see. Full credit goes to the amazing original creators and copyright holders. Alright fam, grab your ramen and kunai. Let's get into it. Silence, proclaimed Lord Sarutobi, his voice echoing across the stadium as he stood at the edge of the balcony, overlooking the arena. His eyes held a deep disappointment as he took in the behavior of the crowd, people he had spent a lifetime protecting, reacting with fear and hostility towards someone who bore a burden they could not understand. Despite his command, the civilians continued to scramble, desperate to find anything they could use as a weapon to get down into the arena and confront Gaara. With a furrowed brow and a heavy heart, the elderly Hokage released a powerful wave of chakra. Though it was not harmful, it radiated authority and demanded attention. The crowd froze, overwhelmed by the sheer presence of their leader, as silence once again fell over the arena. Everyone turned toward him, stunned, as Lord Sarutobi's sharp gaze swept across the stadium. "You should be deeply ashamed of yourselves," he said firmly, his voice steady but commanding. "To treat a shinobi from an allied village with such hostility, simply because of something you do not comprehend, is an embarrassment to our home. This is not the way of Konoha." "But Lord Hokage," one of the villagers called out, clearly upset, "we can't let someone else with a powerful spirit cause fear in our village again. We stood strong before, and maybe we must stand strong again." Others in the crowd began murmuring in agreement, their uncertainty returning. Watching the unrest continue, the Raikage, folded his arms with a faint smirk. "Seems like your people aren't as disciplined as they used to be, Sarutobi. I can understand why Naruko left this place behind." Sarutobi's expression didn't shift, though a subtle, knowing smile touched the corners of his lips. "If only you knew the full story," he thought silently, before returning his focus to restoring order. Leaning slightly toward his bodyguard, Sarutobi spoke in a quiet tone. "Raido, inform Ibiki to have his forces ready in case anything unexpected happens. My former student may try to take advantage of this chaos." Raido nodded discreetly and relayed the message through a secure communication channel. Meanwhile, Sarutobi made a small gesture, and an Anbu operative blended into the crowd to ensure no further disruptions would arise. The tension in the air remained thick, but with swift precision, the situation was diffused. The presence of Konoha's elite forces served as a reminder to all present. This village would not crumble under fear or prejudice. Seeing the change in the atmosphere, Lord Sarutobi once again raised his voice. "Everyone, return to your seats so we may proceed with the exam," he ordered, his tone reminiscent of the strong, unwavering leader from the era of the Third Great Shinobi War. It was the voice of the Hokage, the protector of the village and its people. The civilians, now solemn and quiet, obeyed without protest. The shinobi and kunoichi remained vigilant, prepared in case of any further disruption. From their seats, A, B, and Dodai exchanged glances, their restrained smiles showing a glimmer of newfound respect. "Perhaps Konoha still has strength left after all," they thought in unison. "Looks like your efforts are bearing fruit, Naruko." Back in the arena, Genma cleared his throat and stepped forward, signaling that the next match would now begin. The disguised Kazekage, however, frowned at the unfolding situation. With his hidden strategy exposed, Konoha would undoubtedly keep a closer watch on Gaara from now on, especially while he remained in the Fire Country. To add to his concern, two of his new targets during the invasion turned out to be Jinchuriki, and they appeared to have strong control over their tailed beast's chakra. His carefully crafted plan to gain the upper hand against Konoha was beginning to unravel. "Kumo's becoming more of a challenge than expected," the impersonated Cage thought with a tense expression as he observed the match, where Tamari skillfully used her battle fan to send Shikamaru flying into the wall. With Team 20. "Great job, Kaoru," said Naruko with a proud smile, giving her red-haired teammate a supportive hug. Yugito quickly joined in with an encouraging gesture of her own. "Everything is moving right on schedule. The shinobi are alert and on edge, thanks to the pressure coming from the civilians. Even though this turn of events wasn't expected, with the third Hokage stepping up and reclaiming his title as the god of shinobi, our chances during the invasion have actually improved." "That's true," Kaoru responded, leaning against the railing beside her teammates while watching the match. "But won't it be tougher now that he's back to his full strength?" Yugito nodded slightly, still keeping her eyes on the match. Karu's right, Naruko. The Hokage being at his peak again means we'll need to be even more careful with our final moves. From the corner of her eye, Yugito noticed Hinata watching her with a disapproving glare. Instead of reacting negatively, Yugito simply gave a confident smile and moved closer to Naruko. Instinctively, Naruko wrapped an arm around her, eyes still focused on the match. "It won't be a problem," Naruko said calmly, earning surprised looks from both teammates. "He still believes I'm loyal to Konoha, and he still sees me as someone close to him. That trust is exactly what gives us an advantage. When the time comes to make our move, that emotional distraction will buy us the time we need to get away without conflict." Karu and Yugito both nodded, understanding the deeper meaning behind Naruko's words. Turning their attention back to the arena, they couldn't help but sigh as Shikamaru voluntarily gave up the match despite having Temari trapped. "Classic Nara," they muttered in unison, shaking their heads. As Shikamaru and Temari exited the field, Naruko stood up, her expression turning serious. "Yugito, it's your turn now. Give it everything you've got and try your best to win." "Understood, Naruko," Yugito replied with a determined nod, preparing herself for the upcoming match. With Genma. For the final match of the first round, will Hinata Hyuga and Yugito Ni please come down? Genma announced. Hinata stepped onto the arena floor with quiet determination, while Yugito took her time. Before jumping down, she gave Naruko a light kiss on the cheek, then leapt into position across from her opponent. Genma, sensing tension between the two, looked slightly uneasy. Yugito turned and waved to her team, momentarily showing her back to Hinata, which only increased the intensity of the atmosphere. Unable to hold back her emotions, Hinata rushed forward before the match had officially begun. She aimed a palm strike at Yugito, who spun swiftly, blocked the attack, and followed through with a light tap to gently push Hinata off balance. Hinata stumbled but quickly stood again, her eyes narrowing. "That wasn't very sportsmanlike," Yugito said with a calm but firm tone, her voice sounding more like a reminder than a reprimand. Turning to Genma, she added, "Maybe we should officially start now?" "Good idea," Genma replied, quickly initiating the match rules and stepping safely away. As soon as the match began, Yugito dashed toward Hinata, kunai in hand. But Hinata, using her Byakugan, swiftly dodged to the side and countered with a spinning kick that sent Yugito sliding back slightly. "Did you really think such a direct move would work on someone from the Hyuga clan?" Hinata said, showing a confident smile. Yugito stood back up, dusting herself off with a grin. Without warning, she vanished in a puff of smoke. "What? A clone?" Hinata whispered, her eyes darting around the field. Suddenly, a familiar voice rang out behind her. "Fire style, fireball jutsu." Hinata turned swiftly, narrowly avoiding being caught by the intense flames that surged forward. From the shadows, Yugito emerged, calmly observing the technique she had just unleashed. The roaring fire engulfed the area, until, moments later, it dispersed, revealing a spinning dome of chakra. Inside stood Hinata, her form centered in the protective shield created by her clan's signature technique. The dome slowly lost momentum, and Hinata came to a stop. Seizing the opportunity, Yugito dashed forward, delivering a precise, spinning kick that struck Hinata and sent her skidding across the arena, stopping near the referee, Genma. With determination, Hinata pushed herself up, directing her gaze at Yugito and then briefly at the Hyuga clan members in the crowd, their expressions unreadable. "How?" she asked, catching her breath. "How did you break through my rotation technique? It's considered our clan's strongest defense." Yugito raised an eyebrow, offering a nonchalant shrug as she lightly waved her hand. "Strong, sure," she replied, "but no defense is perfect. Your technique is powerful, but it leaves an opening once the motion ends. And during the spin, it's nearly impossible to keep track of your opponent's exact location, no matter how skilled your eyes are." Gasps rippled through the crowd. Spectators, both civilians and shinobi, looked on in disbelief. The Hyuga clan's defense was legendary. For someone to breach it so smoothly was unheard of. From the Hyuga section, a tense silence fell, the clan member stunned. Hiyashi Hyuga, though composed, narrowed his eyes thoughtfully. His daughter had trained for years to perfect that technique. He did not speak, but his gaze remained focused, analyzing everything. Back in the arena, Hinata clenched her fists, her resolve flaring. "You'll see the strength of the Hyuga firsthand," she called out, rushing forward. Yugito stood her ground, swiftly performing a set of hand signs. "Fire style, Phoenix flower jutsu." Small, Swift fireballs burst forth from her hands. Hinata channeled chakra into her palm, swatting one away, but winced as she noticed a small cut appear on her hand. Hidden shuriken. Yugito's technique wasn't just for show. Realizing this, Hinata changed her strategy, weaving gracefully between the incoming flames and moving in close. Yugito smirked slightly. This would be a match of close combat now. Hinata struck first with a series of precise gentle fist attacks. Yugito dodged gracefully, countering with a punch to the midsection. Hinata blocked with her palm. Yugito instinctively grabbed Hinata's wrist, pulling her forward into a well-placed knee strike. Hinata staggered back, gasping, then settled into her clan's signature stance. 8 trigrams, 64 palms. She surged forward again. 2 palms. Her hand struck out, but Yugito dodged. 4 palms. More strikes, blocked or avoided. 8 palms, 16 palms, 32 palms. Hinata's determination drove her on, even as each strike missed or was countered. Finally, her eyes narrowed. Hinata made a split-second decision, a deviation from tradition. As she moved into the final sequence, she swept her foot out, knocking Yugito off balance. In that instant, she aimed her final palm strike toward her opponent's upper body. But before the strike could land, Yugito's form shimmered, and vanished in a flicker of sparks. A lightning clone. Hinata realized too late. Behind the referee, the real Yugito reappeared, calmly finishing another string of hand signs. Lightning style, rising storm jutsu. Yugito called out. The ground beneath Hinata trembled, and bolts of lightning surged upward at unpredictable angles. Despite feeling partially immobilized, Hinata managed to dodge most of the strikes, trying to reach her opponent once more. Just as she was gaining ground, a bolt surged from directly beneath her and struck her leg. Hinata cried out, falling to the arena floor as her leg gave out beneath her. She clutched it tightly, now visibly singed from the energy. Yugito calmly readied her wakizashi, holding it in reverse grip as she moved toward Hinata, signaling the end of the match. With Hyashi Hyuga. We must step in, Hyashi said firmly, exchanging looks with members of the Hyuga main house before they disappeared in coordinated flashes of movement. With Naruko. Well done, said Naruko, watching as her friend Yugito moved to secure victory. Her eyes narrowed when she noticed a group of blurs moving quickly in Yugito's direction. Kairo, come on, she shouted, leaping over the railing. Kairo was right behind her. Sensei, we need backup. She called toward the stands. A single blur vanished in response as 3 Cloud Village ninja intercepted the advancing group. Tension fell over the arena as the two sides stood face to face, not a single movement made, as if the air itself held its breath. Team 20 faced Hyashi and several Hyuga elders with determined expressions. The main house members returned the gaze with equal intensity. No one moved. No one spoke, until Naruko finally broke the silence, her voice calm but firm. What gives you the right to interfere in a fair match? She asked, resting her hand on her ninjato just in case. Hyashi stepped forward, his voice steady but proud. This contest involved one of our clan's heirs. The potential danger was too great to ignore. We must protect our own. Naruko's expression remained unreadable, but those who had seen her in high-stakes situations before began to shift uneasily. Crimson chakra shimmered faintly around her, a quiet signal of her rising emotions. Daru and Kairo quickly stepped between her and the Hyuga, carefully observing the situation. Some of the Hyuga winced slightly, overwhelmed by the chakra pressure now radiating from Naruko. Yugito reached for Naruko's cloak and whispered something to her gently, grounding her before the tension could escalate any further. Cage box. Hyashi, what were you thinking? The third Hokage, Hiruzen Sarutobi, thought with concern. He glanced toward the Raikage, expecting outrage. Instead, the Raikage merely smirked, entertained by the display. Hiruzen shook his head and stepped forward, his voice magnified with chakra. Due to outside interference, Hinata Hyuga has been disqualified. The winner of this match is Yugito Ni. His voice was measured, clear, and final. In the arena. Yugito gave a brief nod and helped Naruko calm down, gently taking her arm and leading her back toward the competitor's box with Kairo following. Daru exhaled deeply before vanishing back to the stands, keeping a close eye on the retreating Hyuga group as Hinata was escorted to the medical team. Well, that turned out better than expected, Kakashi said with a chuckle behind his mask, earning a few incredulous looks from the other Konoha jounin. Better? That nearly turned into a full-blown incident between two villages, exclaimed Anko, clearly exasperated. Guy and Kurenai exchanged glances but said nothing. They trusted there was more to Kakashi's perspective. Kakashi simply pulled out a small book and returned to reading. It could have gone far worse. Last time someone threatened Yugito in front of Naruko, let's just say it didn't end quietly, he remarked casually. The others turned to Daru for confirmation. He's right, Daru said with a sigh. Naruko's loyalty to her friends runs deep. She's fiercely protective, especially of Yugito. The group quietly turned their gaze back to Naruko, who was now being gently calmed by her teammates. One unspoken thought crossed each of their minds: if Naruko's ever that upset again, find Yugito fast. In the arena, Genma took a deep breath, steadying himself after nearly being caught in the intense clash between the Kumo team and the Hyuga clan. Finally regaining his composure, he turned to address the crowd, though a hint of astonishment still lingered in his voice. That concludes the first round of matches. The next match will be Naruko Namikaze vs Sasuke Uchiha, followed by Gaara of the Desert vs Temari of the Desert. Yugito Ni will automatically advance to the finals. We will now take a short intermission to allow the competitors to recover. The tournament will resume in 10 minutes. As the tension grew among the remaining participants, Naruko took the time to remain calm and focused. After the brief break, Genma raised his hand to quiet the audience and signaled the start of the next round. The first match of the second round, Naruko Namikaze vs Sasuke Uchiha. Will both competitors please step forward? Sasuke wasted no time, leaping over the railing and landing in front of Genma, his usual stoic expression in place as he fixed his gaze on Naruko. The blonde kunoichi simply smirked, briefly sharing a quick moment with her friends before effortlessly jumping over the rail to land across from her opponent. Well. I was wondering when we'd finally get the chance for that rematch, Naruko said with a confident grin. Sasuke's expression darkened at the remark, his onyx eyes narrowing. Naruko chuckled, tilting her head slightly. What? You're not still upset about that spar back in the Land of Waves, are you? Without a word, Sasuke's eyes shifted, the Sharingan activating as two tomoe spun in each eye. He swiftly formed hand signs, launching a fireball just as Genma barely managed to signal the start of the match and move out of the way. Sasuke smirked as the fireball engulfed Naruko's position, flames roaring as they scorched the ground. However, his satisfaction was short-lived when the fireball split apart, the flames dissipating to reveal Naruko standing there unharmed, her ninjato held firmly in her right hand. Is that all you've got, Uchiha? I expected more, Naruko said, her smirk widening as she observed Sasuke's reaction. Oh, but you're not the last Uchiha, are you? Sasuke's eyes darkened, his expression shifting into one of frustration. Your brother, Itachi, is still out there, isn't he? Be quiet. Once I defeat you, I'll find him and face him myself, Sasuke shouted, quickly forming more hand signs. Fire style, Phoenix Flower Jutsu. He unleashed a series of small fireballs, each one carrying hidden shuriken within the flames. Without hesitation, Naruko sheathed her ninjato and countered with her own set of hand signs. Wind style, great breakthrough. With a powerful gust of wind, she extinguished the flames, revealing the incoming shuriken. Recognizing the attack, she immediately performed another technique. Earth style, earth wall jutsu. A stream of mud shot from her mouth, quickly solidifying into a sturdy wall, blocking the shuriken from reaching her. As the projectiles clattered harmlessly against the structure, Naruko leapt to the top of the wall, looking down at Sasuke with a teasing smile. Surprised you couldn't copy my jutsu, Uchiha? She said, earning murmurs of shock from the audience. It was rare for anyone to counter the famed Sharingan's ability to mimic techniques. It's actually quite simple, she continued. The Sharingan may be able to copy techniques, but it's useless if the user is already in the middle of performing their own jutsu. The flaw is pretty obvious: copying a technique requires the user to have enough chakra left to activate it in the first place. Sasuke clenched his fists, frustration evident on his face. The battle was far from over, and the audience watched with bated breath as the two warriors prepared for their next moves. Silence once again settled over the arena as yet another challenger from outside the village had exposed a significant weakness in one of the most revered Kekkei Genkai. No one was more shocked and frustrated by this revelation than Sasuke Uchiha. His pride wounded, the last Uchiha abandoned the carefully planned strategy he had devised during the month-long break. Overcome by emotion, he leapt onto the arena wall, his Sharingan glowing with intensity. Without hesitation, he performed a rapid sequence of hand signs before cupping his left hand with his right. The audience watched in awe as streaks of lightning crackled around Sasuke's palm, illuminating the determination in his gaze as he fixed his eyes on the surprised blonde standing below. With Naruko's allies. That reckless move. Kakashi muttered, his normally composed expression marred by concern as he observed his student summoning lightning into his grasp. Guy, his longtime friend and rival, turned to him with an unusually serious look. Kakashi, how did he acquire that technique? He asked, his sharp gaze locked onto the scene unfolding in the arena. The other shinobi in the stands shared his curiosity, their attention shifting to the copy ninja for answers. Taking a measured breath to steady himself, Kakashi turned to address them, his voice tight with frustration. It must have happened during our mission to the Land of Waves. Naruko and Sasuke finished their battle before Daru and I, so it's possible that Sasuke observed and copied the technique while I was preparing it to attack Zabuza. Daru nodded in understanding, it was the most logical explanation. However, a troubling thought lingered in his mind, one that he decided to voice. Even if he did manage to replicate the jutsu, mastering it requires extensive training under someone with deep knowledge of lightning-based chakra. The real question is, who could have been instructing him during the past month? The concern in his words was shared by the other Jonin, all of whom returned their focus to the unfolding battle below. In the arena, he copied Kakashi Ni's original technique. Naruko thought, her fists clenching in frustration as she watched Sasuke ready his attack. You won't get away with that so easily, Uchiha. Within her mind, the deep voice of Kurama rumbled in amusement. About time you tested the first of my techniques. Naruko smirked. Then let's show them what we've got. As a wave of fiery chakra coursed through her, a thin red aura flickered around her form. Mirroring Sasuke's stance, she cupped her right hand with her left, her fingers curling slightly like claws. The energy in her palm blazed to life, transforming into crimson flames. As she raised her head, her blue eyes shifted, her pupils narrowing into slits while the whites darkened, a clear sign of her connection to the great fox spirit within her. The crowd gasped at the sight of her transformation, while even seasoned shinobi tensed at the sudden surge of power. Despite this, Naruko and Sasuke remained locked on one another, each determined to prove their strength. They darted forward at speeds that surpassed even most Chunin, their powerful techniques poised for collision. Unbeknownst to them, a subtle shift was occurring in the stands. One by one, civilians began losing consciousness. The more experienced shinobi, recognizing the telltale signs of a genjutsu, quickly dispelled its effects. The realization sent a ripple of tension through the ranks, this was no ordinary match. Just as Naruko and Sasuke were about to clash, an explosion of smoke erupted from the cage box. Multiple figures blurred into motion, moving with alarming speed toward the battlefield. Yet neither competitor noticed, they were fully committed to their attacks. Chidori. Kitsune style, burning fox claw. The two techniques met in a dazzling explosion of energy, sending both Genin hurtling in opposite directions. Naruko skidded to a stop as her teammates and siblings landed beside her, their expressions tense as they prepared for what was to come. I take it the invasion has begun? Naruko asked as she rose to her feet. Yeah, Kakashi confirmed, his gaze shifting toward the dissipating smoke. As the dust settled, it revealed Sasuke leaning against two masked shinobi, silent and unflinching. Root operatives, Kakashi muttered, narrowing his visible eye. That explains how he received his training. Before anyone could react, a deafening explosion erupted from the village's main gate. As the smoke cleared, the massive forms of three giant snake summons came into view, crashing through the entrance and wreaking havoc upon everything in their path. The two masked shinobi took this moment to vanish, carrying Sasuke's unconscious form with them. Looks like you were right about them using summons to breach our outer defenses, Naruko, Hayate observed, his keen eyes tracking the movements of the invading forces. Naruko nodded, her attention shifting to the newly formed sealing barrier surrounding the cage's location. Whatever was about to unfold, it was only just beginning. Let's hope my clones finish their task in time to assist, Naruko said, quickly assessing the situation. Alright, Kairu and Daru-sensei, coordinate with Hayate to clear out any remaining obstacles in the area. The three skilled swordsmen nodded in acknowledgement. Turning to another group, Naruko continued, Kakashi, Kurenai, and Guy, I need you to spread out and secure the perimeter. Make sure no enemy shinobi get close to the arena. Once again, she received silent nods of agreement before shifting her attention to Anko. Anko, I want you to track down Sasuke and the root shinobi. Do not engage them directly, but ensure that anyone else standing in your way is dealt with appropriately, she instructed, noticing Anko's slight pout at not being given free rein. Yugito and I will assist the Raikage and the Hokage. I have a feeling they'll need all the support they can get. Alright, everyone, move out. With that, Naruko and Yugito leapt toward the large purple ceiling barrier. Unbeknownst to Naruko, her words left a lasting impression on her teammates and allies. A shared thought passed through the minds of the gathered Jounin. She truly has the qualities of a future Kage, and one day, she will surpass all who came before her. The battle for Konoha had begun. Hold the line. Don't let them push any further into the village, Ibiki commanded from his vantage point atop a building, surveying the battlefield with a sharp gaze. I should have taken that warning from Namikaze more seriously. If I had listened to that silver-haired Jinan, we might have been better prepared for this. He inwardly chastised himself for dismissing the warning from the blonde Kumo Jinan so easily. Suddenly, a Chunin landed beside him, visibly battered with minor cuts and bruises. Gasping for breath, the soldier quickly straightened under Ibiki's imposing presence. Report. Ibiki barked. Sir. Our forces are spread too thin. Squads 12 through 16 are engaged in delaying the summons from advancing further into the village, while the rest are struggling to hold back the Suna and Oto forces, the Chunin reported, his expression tense as he awaited further orders. Ibiki frowned in thought before issuing his command. Have squads 12 to 16 pull back and regroup with the main defensive line. We need to consolidate our strength. But sir, what about the summons? If we ignore them, they'll wreak havoc on the village. The Chunin protested. I've already dispatched the Onbu's demolition corps to handle them. Our priority is holding back the main invasion force. Now go. Ibiki ordered firmly. The Chunin quickly nodded and disappeared to relay the message. Turning his attention to the devastation below, Ibiki's gaze locked onto 3 massive snake summons rampaging through the village. Just then, 3 Akimichi clan members grew to the size of the Hokage Tower and engaged the serpents in battle, one of them being none other than the head of the Akimichi clan himself, Choza Akimichi. If Choza is here, then Inoiki and Shikaku can't be far behind, Ibiki mused, a small smirk playing on his lips. Sure enough, moments later, a squad of Suna shinobi suddenly turned on their own allies, their eyes glazed over as if under a trance. Meanwhile, a group of Oto Chunin collapsed to their knees, clutching their throats as if an invisible force was choking them. Hey, looks like the Inoshika-cho formation is making its move. About time I joined the fight as well, Ibiki muttered before leaping from the rooftop into the fray, forming hand seals mid-air. Landing in front of a squad of Suna Jounin, he completed his jutsu. Summoning jutsu, phantom confinement. The battlefield around them darkened as a massive cage materialized, trapping the enemy within. Chains shot out, binding their wrists and ankles as eerie gears emerged beneath them, whirring ominously. Normally, I'd take my time extracting information, Ibiki said, his voice cold but steady. But today, I have no time to waste. With a final hand seal, the gears activated, pulling the chains tighter around the captured shinobi. As their movements ceased, the technique dissipated, leaving Ibiki free to face the next wave of attackers. Nearby, the 3 towering Akimichi clan members struggled to hold back the colossal snake summons, and even the Onbu's demolition corps seemed to be losing ground. Ibiki clenched his fists. If only Lord Jiraiya were here. He thought, before refocusing on the battle ahead. A few blocks away from the stadium. Where are they all coming from? Kurenai questioned in frustration as she delivered a precise kick, sending an Oto Chunin sprawling. Nearby, Kakashi deftly blocked an incoming attack before countering with a kunai strike. As another trio of enemy shinobi replaced the fallen fighter, he sighed and lifted his headband, revealing his Sharingan. Within moments, he trapped them in a genjutsu, rendering them harmless. I'm not sure, but just focus on keeping them away from the arena, Kakashi instructed, hurling a shuriken toward another group of attackers. His fingers blurred through hand seals. Shuriken Shadow Clone Jutsu. The single shuriken multiplied into hundreds, raining down upon the advancing Oto forces and stopping them in their tracks. I know that, Kakashi, Kurenai retorted, exasperated as she cast another genjutsu. She was so focused that she failed to notice an Oto Chunin creeping up behind her, Kadachi poised for a strike. Before the attacker could strike, a young voice rang out, fang over fang. 2 spinning forms slammed into the enemy from both sides, sending him flying. Kurenai turned to see 2 identical figures skid to a stop nearby. Kiba? Kurenai called, raising an eyebrow. One of the Kibas, clearly the real one, rubbed the back of his head sheepishly before responding. We saw you heading this way and figured you could use some backup. With that, he and his transformed partner Akamaru launched into another attack. Kakashi and Kurenai exchanged glances. We? They asked in unison, looking around for the rest of the unexpected reinforcements. The battle unfolds. Yes, we're here, said a deep, familiar voice. The two former Konoha Jounin turned to see Asuma Sarutobi standing before them, holding an unconscious Suna ninja in a firm headlock. Not far from him, they noticed a shadow slithering across the ground, latching onto an auto ninja and freezing him in place. The trapped enemy struggled to break free but was suddenly knocked over by a rapidly spinning figure. As the dust settled, the spinning form shrank to reveal Choji, while Shikamaru stepped calmly out of a shaded alleyway. Asuma, I thought you were stationed at the west gate, Kakashi said, swiftly dodging an incoming strike before countering with precise efficiency. I was, Asuma replied, blocking Asuna Shinobi's kunai with one of his trench knives before swiftly incapacitating his opponent with the other. But when Raido called for heightened alert, I decided to head toward the arena to check if my father needed any support. Just before I arrived, the cage box was engulfed in smoke, and I spotted you and Kurenai heading this way. I gathered the nearby Genon and brought them here to assist, though I'm not exactly thrilled about them having to fight in this situation. We don't have much choice, Kakashi responded, his tone carrying a hint of reluctance. At some point, they'll need to learn how to stand on their own. They can't always rely on others for protection. With Guy and Lee. On another part of the battlefield, two taijutsu specialists were making their presence known. The invading forces of Suna and Otto could do little as two green blurs tore through their ranks with astonishing speed and precision. Lee, we must not allow these adversaries to reach the stadium. Our determination and spirit must shine through, Guy declared, his energy unwavering as he delivered a powerful strike to an enemy shinobi. Yes, Guy-sensei. I will hold my ground, and if I fail, I shall run from one end of the continent to the other on my hands. And if I cannot do that, I will. Lee's determined vow was cut short as an Auto Chonin lunged at him with a kunai. Reacting instantly, Lee grabbed the enemy's wrist, delivered a swift elbow strike to the chest, and followed up with a spinning kick that sent the attacker tumbling. Such a lack of spirit, Lee remarked before leaping back to his mentor's side. Together, the duo continued to hold their ground, pushing back the opposing forces. Inside the arena, Hayate swiftly ducked beneath an incoming kunai before countering with a precise sword strike, rendering his opponent unable to continue fighting. Spotting another adversary approaching from the right, he smoothly transitioned, maneuvering his blade with practiced skill to disarm and subdue the attacker. Flicking the sweat from his brow, he surveyed the battlefield to check on his fellow swordsman. Daru, wielding his oversized cleaver sword, was effectively keeping enemies at bay while periodically launching kunai to deter incoming threats. Kaoru, with her katana in hand, moved with remarkable agility, fending off multiple opponents at once. Many underestimated her due to her smaller frame, but they quickly realized their mistake when she effortlessly outmaneuvered them. Hayate winced slightly as Kaoru swiftly disarmed an opponent with a well-placed strike. Shaking off his distraction, he refocused, continuing to engage the enemy with speed and precision. With Kaoru dodging a kunai thrown in her direction, Kaoru swiftly spun on her heel and countered, forcing back the three Auto shinobi attempting to surround her. Just as she prepared to engage another opponent, she sensed an incoming strike from above and raised her blade to block. Her attacker was a girl with two distinctive buns in her hair, resembling a panda. You're Tenten, aren't you? Kaoru asked, recognizing her opponent. Tenten gave a tense nod but didn't lower her weapon. Why are you attacking me? Kaoru questioned, stepping back to create some distance. Your village is under attack, and I'm here to help. What's going on? Tenten's expression hardened. Because your teammate hurt Neji. Kaoru blinked in surprise, piecing together the situation. Then, realization dawned on her. You cared about him, didn't you? She said, her grip tightening on her weapon, understanding that this battle was now unavoidable. A clash of wills. I cared about him deeply, and now, because of your teammate, I'll never have the chance to tell him. Tenten's voice rang out, filled with emotion as tears welled in her eyes. Despite her grief, her determined gaze never wavered. Since your teammate took someone important from me, I'll take someone important from them. With that declaration, the skilled weapons expert surged forward, her katana gleaming under the light. Kaoru swiftly raised her own blade, intercepting the downward strike before stepping back and countering with a swift slash toward Tenten's legs. Reacting instantly, Tenten leapt over the attack and delivered a kick aimed at Kaoru's head. Kaoru managed to evade the strike by rolling to the side. Wasting no time, Tenten withdrew three kunai and launched them toward Kaoru before charging in right behind them. Karo deflected the kunai but failed to notice Tenten's swift horizontal slash until the last moment. She barely managed to avoid serious harm, jumping back just in time, but not before a shallow cut appeared across her abdomen. "Alright, time to get serious," Karo said, channeling lightning chakra into her katana. The energy crackled along the blade, forming a jagged, serrated edge. Cloud style, lightning saw. As she swung her weapon, a spinning arc of pure lightning surged toward Tenten. Tenten quickly dodged, landing at a safe distance, but a sudden jolt of pain coursed through her leg. Glancing down, she noticed a small, flickering spark at the site of a fresh wound. Looking up at Karo, who now smirked confidently, Tenten steadied her stance, gripping her katana tightly. Both kunoichi prepared for the next clash. Dash. Outside the ceiling barrier. "What are we going to do?" "We need to help Lord Hokage." A masked Anbu operative, wearing a brown cloak, spoke urgently. He turned to his right, seeking guidance from his superior, a white-cloaked Anbu captain with a wolf mask. The captain remained silent, deep in thought as he assessed their options. The only way to break this barrier is for Lord Hokage to neutralize one of its anchors from the inside. But now that they've reinforced the interior, that's no longer an option. If we attempt to force our way through. His gaze flickered toward the charred remains of a fallen comrade, evidence of the barrier's deadly defense. Before he could consider their next move, two swift blurs of blonde appeared beside them. The three Anbu members instantly turned, prepared to defend themselves, only to come face to face with Naruko Namikaze and Yugito Ni. The wolf-masked captain was about to speak when another Anbu, wearing a lion mask, cut in harshly. "What are you doing here, demon?" Before Naruko could respond, the wolf-masked captain interjected with a firm, commanding voice. "Enough. Show Lady Namikaze the respect she deserves." His tone left no room for argument. The Kumo ninja present were slightly surprised. A Konoha Anbu not only defending Naruko but also addressing her with respect? That was unexpected. Interesting, Naruko thought, maybe I can use that to my advantage. "What's the situation?" she asked, her tone serious. The lion-masked Anbu hesitated, but another sharp look from the captain kept him silent. The captain turned to the two blondes, quickly explaining. "Lady Namikaze, Orochimaru has trapped Lord Hokage and the Raikage inside the barrier. So far, all attempts to break through have failed." Naruko nodded thoughtfully, carefully observing the barrier. As she focused on its chakra flow, something seemed off. Turning to Yugito, her voice held a mix of curiosity and realization. "Yugito-chan, what do you sense from the chakra forming this barrier?" Yugito tilted her head, puzzled, but closed her eyes and concentrated. After a few seconds, surprise flickered across her face before settling into understanding. "This chakra. It's not normal," she stated, drawing surprised looks from the Anbu. "But it's not demonic chakra either." "What do you mean?" the bird-masked Anbu asked, glancing between the barrier and Yugito. "It's a hybrid," Yugito explained, slipping into an analytical tone. "It has properties similar to demonic chakra, but it's still fundamentally human-based. It's an unstable and artificial attempt at creating a new type of energy, one that surpasses ordinary human chakra but doesn't fully reach the level of true demonic power." The Anbu stared at her, momentarily speechless at her insight. "In that case," Naruko said, crossing her arms, "actual demonic chakra should be able to override it." Yugito nodded in agreement. The two Jinchuriki focused, and within moments, their forms were enveloped in the powerful energy of their respective Baijuu. Before the stunned Anbu could react, Naruko and Yugito leapt toward the barrier. To the amazement of the Anbu, and the shocked horror of the Sound Four, rather than being repelled or harmed, the two Jinchuriki passed effortlessly through the barrier. Without hesitation, they landed within the enclosed battleground where the Hokage and Raikage now faced Orochimaru. Dash. Inside the barrier, the battle begins. "So this was your plan all along, wasn't it, Orochimaru?" Sarutobi Hiruzen's voice was steady as he remained locked in a hold, a kunai pressed to his neck. A, Killer B, and Dodai stood at a distance, observing the exchange closely, each waiting for the inevitable confrontation to unfold. Orochimaru smirked. "Oh? And here I thought you already knew, sensei. What happened to the real Kazekage?" Sarutobi pressed, eyes sharp. Orochimaru chuckled, his tone casual, as if discussing the weather. "Oh, I believe he's resting. Somewhere outside the village. Let's just say he won't be troubling anyone anymore." Sarutobi's expression hardened. "Whatever you seek here, you won't succeed." Before Orochimaru could respond, Sarutobi's form shifted, his body turning brown before crumbling into mud. Surprised, Orochimaru drove his kunai deeper, only for the clone to dissolve completely. From a short distance away, the real Sarutobi stood in full battle gear, prepared for the fight ahead. I will stop you before you can carry out your plans. Orochimaru's surprise faded, replaced by a slow, amused chuckle. The chuckle grew into laughter, deep, ominous, and filled with anticipation. The battle was about to begin. You're mistaken, Sensei. I've already accomplished what I came here for, Naruko stated confidently, causing Sarutobi to narrow his eyes. The three Kumo shinobi exchanged intrigued glances, sensing the weight of her words. I bestowed Sasuke-kun with my special mark back in the Forest of Death. No matter what you do, he will eventually seek me out for power. Sarutobi scowled at his former student, vanishing from his position in a blur of speed. In an instant, he reappeared behind Orochimaru, forming the snake hand sign. Earth style, earth flow river. A surge of mud erupted from the ground, sweeping Orochimaru off his feet. Without hesitation, Sarutobi performed another rapid sequence of hand signs, concluding once more with the snake sign. Earth style, earth dragon bomb. A massive dragon head formed at the river's origin, launching hardened mud projectiles at Orochimaru. But Sarutobi wasn't finished. He quickly transitioned into another set of signs, this time ending with the tiger sign. Fire style, fire dragon bomb. A wave of searing flames surged forth, igniting the earth-based projectiles and intensifying the attack. The combined force of fire and earth struck Orochimaru with explosive impact. The Kumo shinobi observed the exchange in awe, while Dodai furrowed his brow thoughtfully. So this is the strength of the legendary god of shinobi. To think he can wield both earth and fire style techniques with such mastery, despite lacking a bloodline limit like mine. Unbelievable. Naruko, I hope you understand what you're up against. Sarutobi remained focused, his eyes locked onto the scorched area where his attack had landed. Come out, Orochimaru. I know you're still there. A moment later, the pale figure of Orochimaru emerged from the ground, still clad in the Kazekage's stolen robes. He. You always had a habit of spoiling my plans, Sensei, Orochimaru chuckled, his eerie grin unwavering. No matter. I suppose it's time for the real battle to begin. But first, he turned toward the Raikage and his guards. Where do you stand in this conflict? Will you support Konoha, despite the way they have treated one of your most gifted young shinobi? Or will you side with me and help bring this village to its knees? Sarutobi's gaze hardened as he studied the Raikage. Naruko may still be loyal to Konoha, but Kumo would do anything to keep her in their village. If they turn against us now, this could escalate into an all-out war. Orochimaru also assessed the Raikage carefully. No matter what he chooses, once this is over, he and his shinobi will not leave unscathed. Taking on the Raikage, his guards, and my old teacher simultaneously will be a challenge, but nothing I can't handle. The Raikage clenched his fists. Even though I hold no love for this village, you are far too dangerous to be left unchecked. For that reason alone, I will set aside my grievances and fight alongside Sarutobi to put an end to your schemes, I declared. Taking a strong taijutsu stance, the Raikage prepared for battle. Beside him, B unsheathed two of his swords, while Dodai focused his chakra and gripped a kunai tightly. Sarutobi, recognizing the resolve in their stance, nodded and readied himself as well. Orochimaru observed his opponents, frowning slightly before discarding the Kazekage's robes and settling into his own stance. A tense silence filled the air, each side waiting for the other to make the first move. Then, Orochimaru tensed, just in time to evade a kunai aimed directly at his neck. His eyes snapped toward the origin of the attack, spotting two blonde figures rushing toward him. Before he could react, three more kunai whizzed toward him, forcing him to leap backward. Landing near the edge of his barrier, Orochimaru narrowed his eyes at the newcomers. Standing beside the Raikage were none other than Naruko Uzumaki and Yugito Ni, both poised for battle. A, B, and Dodai smirked at the sight of their two fellow blondes ready to fight alongside them. The Hokage, however, was visibly surprised. Naruko, what are you doing here? And how did you get past the barrier? The question lingered in the air as all eyes turned toward the duo, some filled with curiosity, others with concern. Simple, old man, Naruko replied, her gaze fixed on Orochimaru. This barrier is created using a corrupted form of chakra. Since my chakra contains a pure version of it, passing through was effortless. Orochimaru's surprise flickered across his face before being replaced by his signature grin. He he he. You truly are a clever one, Naruko-kun. Perhaps I should have chosen you instead of Sasuke-kun, he mused. Before he could continue, a massive fireball rained down from above, forcing him to dodge. Looking up, he spotted a smirking clone of Naruko before it vanished in a puff of smoke. Turning back to the original, he barely had time to react as two more fireballs barreled toward him. Leaping into the air to escape the flames, Orochimaru prepared to counter, only to be met with a crushing punch to the stomach from the raikage. Wasting no time, launched a flurry of attacks, pummeling Orochimaru relentlessly before finishing with a devastating axe kick that sent him hurtling toward the rooftop. He seized the opportunity, leaping into the air to intercept the falling Sannin. With both swords poised, he aimed for a decisive strike. Unfortunately, just as his blade sliced through Orochimaru's form, the figure melted into mud. He cursed under his breath as he twisted midair, scanning the battlefield for the elusive opponent. Dodai, watching intently from a higher vantage point, noticed a flicker of movement behind B. Reacting swiftly, he performed a set of hand signs, summoning a thick rubber rope. With precision, he swung it toward B's ankle, preparing to pull him out of harm's way. The battle was far from over. Unexpected reinforcements. B, behind you. B turned quickly, only to see Orochimaru with a sword emerging from his mouth, ready to strike. Just as the attack was about to land, B felt himself being pulled down toward Dodai and his fellow shinobi. Landing beside them, he gave a grateful nod before refocusing on Orochimaru. The serpent-like adversary retracted his sword before narrowing his gaze at the assembled group. Before he could make another move, a shadow loomed over him. An all too familiar voice rang out from above. Guillotine drop. Orochimaru barely had time to react before a powerful axe kick descended toward him, courtesy of the raikage. Jumping back swiftly to avoid the impact, A landed beside B, keeping his focus locked on their opponent. "Come on out, Orochimaru," A called out. A chuckle echoed through the area as Orochimaru slowly emerged from the debris, showing almost no signs of injury. "Impressive," Orochimaru mused. "This battle is turning out to be quite engaging. However, I believe it's time to even the odds, wouldn't you agree?" With a snap of his fingers, a small gap appeared in the barrier behind him. In an instant, 3 figures shot through before the barrier resealed itself. The figures came to a halt beside Orochimaru, revealing shinobi wearing blank masks with the kanji for root engraved on their foreheads. Sarutobi tensed at the sight. Memories of working with Danzo's root during the Third Great Shinobi War resurfaced in his mind. "Be cautious," he warned. "Root shinobi are highly trained and never to be underestimated." Danzo conditioned them to follow orders without hesitation. With his passing, it seems they've aligned themselves with one of their own. Biting his thumb, Sarutobi quickly performed a familiar series of hand signs. Summoning jutsu. With a puff of smoke, the Monkey King, Enma, appeared, his sharp eyes immediately locking onto Orochimaru. "So, it's you again, Orochimaru," Enma said. "I take it the situation is dire if you've summoned me, Hiruzen." "Indeed, Enma. We need the adamantine staff," Sarutobi confirmed. With a nod of understanding, Enma performed a single hand sign before transforming into a black staff with golden tips. Sarutobi grasped it firmly. "Prepare yourself, Orochimaru. Today, I will correct the mistake I made long ago." Orochimaru smirked at Sarutobi's declaration. "Is that so, sensei?" he mused. "In that case, perhaps I should call in some reinforcements of my own." Moving through a rapid sequence of hand signs, Orochimaru pressed his hands together and grinned at Sarutobi's reaction. Summoning jutsu, reanimation. The ground trembled as 2 coffins rose before Orochimaru. One bore the kanji for first, while the other displayed second. The tension in the air grew as the coffins slowly creaked open. Gasps echoed through the battlefield as the figures inside were revealed, none other than the first and second Hokage, Hashirama, and Tobirama Senju. Sarutobi's grip tightened around his staff. "How dare you misuse such a sacred technique," he said, his voice firm. The 2 legendary shinobi surveyed their surroundings before their gazes landed on Sarutobi. "You've grown older, Saru," Tobirama observed, his voice calm but sharp. "I'm curious, why are you standing alongside Kumo shinobi?" "It seems he is opposing us," Hashirama noted, glancing toward Orochimaru, who now held 2 control tags in his hands. Tobirama turned to examine the tags and nodded in realization. "I see. We've been summoned by my own forbidden jutsu." Orochimaru simply smirked before placing the tags on the backs of their heads. Now that we've balanced the playing field, shall we begin? Orochimaru said smoothly. Then, turning to his root operatives, he issued instructions. Dajimu, handle the rakeage. Tarai and Tara, you take on the Kumojounen. As for you two, he continued, glancing toward the first and second Hokage, I want you to face those two blondes. Let's see how Sarutobi reacts when people he cares about are forced into battle against his own teachers. Naruko and Yugito tensed, preparing for the most challenging battle of their lives. Before they could react, the reanimated Hokage lunged forward, driven by the control tags. Naruko quickly grabbed Yugito and leapt away, narrowly avoiding two powerful strikes. Seeing an opportunity, pivoted on his heel, aiming a swift kick at the revived Hokage. However, before his attack could connect, they effortlessly evaded and continued their pursuit. Before it could go after them, a massive fist came barreling toward him. He barely managed to dodge as one of Orochimaru's root operatives blocked his path. Darn it, he muttered, glancing toward B and Dodai. They, too, had their hands full with another root shinobi. Realizing that time was of the essence, turned his full attention to his opponent, settling into his taijutsu stance. I need to finish this fast, he thought. Naruko and Yugito are going to need all the help they can get. With Sarutobi and Orochimaru. You've truly gone too far, Orochimaru, Sarutobi stated, eyes locked on his former student. Using such a technique and forcing those two into battle against innocent shinobi. It's unforgivable. Orochimaru chuckled, his stance relaxed yet poised. You should be pleased, sensei, he said with a smirk. After all, you're finally reunited with your old teachers. Sarutobi's expression hardened. I've had enough of this, Orochimaru. It's time to put an end to your schemes, once and for all. With that, he charged forward, adamantine staff in hand, ready for battle. Are we almost ready? The battle has already started, asked a clone of Naruko as she observed the others making the final adjustments to the summoning seal they had drawn. Just about. We just need to fine-tune the seal to summon the right allies, another clone responded while completing the outer markings. Nodding in agreement, the first clone closed her eyes, carefully considering the best choice for handling the massive snakes attacking the village. Alright, modify the seal to summon the Inferno twins. I'm sure they'd be eager to lend a hand, the first clone instructed. The others nodded in understanding and swiftly began making the necessary alterations. Within minutes, 6 clones positioned themselves around the seal, gathering chakra for the summoning. With synchronized precision, they formed the required hand signs, concluding with the ram sign. Their eyes snapped open as they slammed their hands onto the ground, shouting in unison, summoning jutsu, Inferno twins. A massive cloud of smoke erupted just outside the village walls, bringing the battle to a temporary halt. Konoha's defenders tensed, fearing the enemy had unleashed even more serpents to wreak havoc, while the invaders assumed their allies had called forth additional reinforcements. As the smoke cleared, the sight before them left the Konoha shinobi in awe and their opponents bewildered. Towering at the village's edge stood 2 majestic 4-tailed foxes, their vibrant orange fur gleaming under the sunlight. They let out a thunderous roar that reverberated through the village, shaking the very ground beneath them. Those who had survived the attack 13 years ago stood frozen, memories of that fateful night flashing through their minds. The powerful roar was eerily reminiscent of the legendary 9-tailed fox's presence, stirring emotions of both fear and reverence. As the colossal foxes advanced steadily toward the village, the shinobi braced themselves, hoping this powerful force had come as an ally rather than a threat. That's all for now, guys. If you enjoyed the content, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to my channel for more awesome videos. Love you all, and see you in the next one. Regards. 6 Path Weeb.